The temple stood tall in the middle of a red desert, quiet and forgotten. Wind howled through broken pillars, carrying sand that had buried ships, bones and old machines. But deep inside the temple, one thing remained untouched, a sword glowing softly, stuck inside a black stone altar, waiting. They called it the Blade of Origins. No one knew who made it, or how old it was. But one thing was clear: it could not be lifted, not by anyone, not by the strongest warlords, not by kings, not even by creatures with godlike strength. For centuries, aliens from every corner of the galaxy came to try. Some brought machines to lift it, others prayed, others screamed in rage. But the sword stayed still, quiet, unmoved. Even the bravest warriors failed, and some never returned from the trial. Then came the humans, not to lift the sword, but to trade and scavenge like rats in the shadows. The galaxy looked down on them, calling them weak, new and unworthy. No human had dared to touch the sword until now. His name was Jack Carver, not a hero, not a soldier, just a cargo pilot running from a pirate attack. His ship had crash-landed 2 miles from the temple. Wounded, with one arm burned and rations low, he dragged himself across the desert. He didn't know the temple was sacred. He just saw a tall building and hoped for shelter. When he stumbled through the ancient door, he collapsed on the cold stone floor. The silence inside felt strange, like something was watching. Jack lit a small flare from his belt. He saw the sword glowing faintly across the room. A long, sharp blade with alien patterns, its hilt wrapped in old golden cloth. It looked beautiful, and for some reason, it felt familiar. He limped closer, drawn to it like a moth to fire. Behind him, a voice shouted, "Stop!" Alien guards in black armor rushed in, weapons pointed at him. One of them, a tall creature with glowing eyes, stepped forward and growled, "Do not touch the sacred blade, human." Jack raised his hand slowly, confused. "I just wanted water," he said. "I didn't know." The alien leader, High Guard Vatal, sneered. "You don't belong here, human. This is a holy site." But before they could drag him away, something happened. The sword pulsed. A low hum filled the chamber, growing louder, vibrating the stone floor. Everyone froze. The sword had never reacted before, not to anyone. Jack looked at it, then at the aliens. Their eyes were wide with fear. Vatal whispered, "It's responding." Another guard hissed. "Impossible." Jack, unsure why, reached out and touched the hilt. The hum turned into a deep sound, like a heartbeat echoing across time. The sword didn't lift, not yet, but it glowed brighter than ever before. The stone cracked beneath it. The room shook as ancient lights flickered on the walls. Symbols glowed, human shapes holding the blade. "Leading armies," Vatal shouted. "Step back." But Jack couldn't move. He felt the sword calling to him. The aliens pulled him away by force. They threw him to the floor and surrounded the sword with guards. "Lock him up," Vatal commanded. No one else must know. But they were too late. Word spread fast. The sword had reacted to a human. Alien scholars, politicians, and even warriors began to whisper in fear and wonder. What did it mean? Was the prophecy real? In the cell beneath the temple, Jack sat in silence. His hand still tingled from touching the hilt. A strange warmth flowed through his blood. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew one thing. The sword had chosen him, not to fight, not to rule, but to change something outside his cell. The stars continued to burn in the night sky, but everything was already different now. Because for the first time in 1,000 years, the sword had moved, and it had moved for a human. Jack sat in the cold alien cell, staring at his hand. His palm still buzzed with that strange energy. He hadn't lifted the sword, not yet, but it had reacted to him, and that was enough to make the galaxy tremble. Above him, the temple echoed with footsteps, commands and whispers. Alien guards moved faster now, setting up shields around the chamber. Scholars argued about old prophecies. Some said the sword was a weapon of destruction. Others called it a symbol of peace. But one thing they all feared: A human touched it, and now, the galaxy might never be the same. Jack heard the cell door open. A tall alien girl stepped inside. Her skin silver blue and her eyes glowing faintly. She wore a cloak with ancient markings, and her voice was soft. "My name is Alara," she said. "I saw what you did." Jack didn't move, just watched her carefully. "You're not like the guards," he said slowly. "No," she replied. "I'm a historian. And maybe your only friend here." Alara had studied the Blade of Origins her whole life. She believed it was waiting for someone not born of alien blood. "Everyone tried to lift it with strength," she whispered. "But it's not about strength." Jack laughed bitterly. "I didn't come here to be a hero," he said. "I just wanted to survive." Alara nodded. "Maybe that's why it chose you," she said. "You didn't want power. That makes you different." She pulled out a small map, drawn on glowing parchment. "There's more," she whispered, looking over her shoulder. "There's a place under the temple. Old ruins no one is allowed to enter, they say. The truth about the sword's origin is buried there." Jack frowned. "What truth?" "The sword wasn't made by aliens," she said. "It was made by something else, something lost." Later that night, Alara returned to Jack's cell and unlocked the door. "We don't have much time," she said. "They plan to move you to a high-security vault." "Why help me?" Jack asked, confused. "Because I've seen the old texts," she said. "And I believe in what you are." They moved through hidden tunnels beneath the temple. Old stone walls lit up as they passed, reacting to Jack's presence. It was as if the very planet knew he had arrived. Finally, they reached a sealed gate, covered in dust and strange writing. Alara touched one symbol. It glowed, but didn't open. Jack reached out and pressed his hand to the center. The gate rumbled and slowly opened, revealing a wide, ancient hall. Inside were carvings, massive stone murals, showing beings that looked human. They were taller, wearing armor, holding the Blade of Origins. In one mural, a human led armies of aliens, standing on a field of stars. Jack whispered, "Is this Earth's history?" Alara shook her head. "Older than Earth. Maybe before Earth even existed." At the end of the hall, they found something else, a mirror. But it wasn't glass. It shimmered with energy, showing Jack's reflection. But not exactly. In the image, he wore strange armor, with the sword glowing in his hand. Behind him stood a crowd of alien races bowing, not out of fear, but respect. The mirror faded, and the room fell silent. Alara turned to Jack. "You were meant to find this," she said. "This isn't just about lifting the sword, Jack. It's about leading, or protecting something much bigger." Suddenly, the wall behind them cracked. A blast of blue energy slammed into the ground guards. Had found them, a voice shouted, "Surrender the human." Jack grabbed Alara, and they ran deeper into the ruins. He wasn't fast, but now he felt stronger, sharper. His mind processed everything quicker. He dodged a falling beam and pulled Alara aside before it crushed her. They escaped through a collapsing tunnel and emerged behind the temple. The stars above looked peaceful, but Jack knew everything had changed. He wasn't just a human who touched a sword. He was a threat now. As they caught their breath, Alara turned to him. "They'll hunt you, Jack," she said. "They'll fear what you might become." Jack looked at the horizon. "Then I'll give them a reason to be afraid," he said quietly. Far behind them, the Blade of Origins still waited. It had not been lifted yet, but now it had chosen its path, and that path had just begun. The stars above the desert temple shone cold and distant. Jack and Alara moved quietly through rocky canyons, escaping the patrol searching for them. They didn't speak much. Every step was risky. Every shadow could hide a hunter. But something had changed in Jack. He could feel it. He was faster, sharper, like the sword's energy was still flowing through him. They found shelter in an old outpost hidden deep in the cliffs. Inside was a quiet monk, an ancient alien with white eyes and long silver robes. He sat cross-legged before a small fire, waiting, as if he already knew they were coming. "You bring change," the monk said softly as Jack entered. Alara bowed respectfully. Master Vec, he touched the blade. The monk opened one eye and studied Jack carefully. The galaxy will not like this, he said. But the sword has waited long enough. Jack sat beside the fire, still unsure what was happening. Why me? He asked. Why not one? Of your own kind? Vec smiled slowly. Because the sword was made by yours. Jack's eyes widened. But humans never left Earth until 100 years ago. Vec shook his head. That's what you believe. Because the truth was buried. He motioned to an old device beside the fire, a glowing cube that projected star maps and images. Planets Jack had never seen. Cities floating in gas clouds. Structures bigger than moons. These worlds once knew your people, Vec said. Long ago, before the Great Silence. Humans ruled parts of the stars. Jack stared in disbelief. Then what happened? They vanished, Vec said. No war, no disaster, just silence. The Blade of Origins was left behind as a key. To find someone worthy again. Worthy. Of what? Jack asked. To unite, Vec said. Not to conquer. The sword chooses peace first. But if needed, it can bring fire, Alara leaned forward. But how did no one ever learn this? Vec looked at her with sad eyes. Because history is written by survivors, not by truth. He handed Jack a glowing disc. Take this. Inside are visions, memories. They can only be unlocked by the sword's energy. Jack took it, and again. His hand tingled. The disc glowed brighter the moment he touched it. Suddenly, images flashed, visions of warriors in ancient armor, of humans riding beasts through the stars, of a great council begging one man to lift the sword and bring order. The visions faded, and Jack gasped for breath. What was that? Echoes of your ancestors, Vec said. The sword is not a weapon, it's a bridge. But before they could ask more, a loud explosion shook the cliffs. Dirt rained from the ceiling as red alarms blinked. They found us, Alara whispered, pulling Jack to his feet. Monk Vec nodded calmly. Go. I will stay behind. The knowledge must survive through you now. Jack hesitated. You'll die if you stay. Vec smiled gently. I've already lived too long. But you, human, you have much to do. They ran through a back tunnel, the light of the desert moon guiding their path. Above, alien dropships landed, soldiers spreading like shadows through the rocks. But Jack didn't stop running, not this. Hours later, they reached a broken transport ship buried in the sand. Alara activated its core, while Jack watched the desert sky light up with battle flashes. She looked at him, breathless but determined. The galaxy doesn't fear you. Because you're dangerous. She said, they fear you because you're human. Jack sat in the back of the ship as it powered up. He held the disc tightly, its glow fading slowly in his hand. He now understood he wasn't meant to lift the sword with strength. He was meant to remember. As they flew across the desert, Jack looked out at the stars. They erased our past, he whispered, but I'm going to bring it back, somewhere deep in the galaxy. The Blade of Origins waited, not to fight a war but to awaken something forgotten, and Jack had just taken the first step. He didn't know where the path would lead, but he knew this. The galaxy wasn't ready for the return of true humans, and he was no longer just a man. He was becoming a memory reborn. They reached the outer edge of the silent nebula 3 days later. Jack sat near the front of the old freighter they borrowed, staring into the swirling black clouds ahead. The stars were gone here, swallowed by the nebula's thick gas. Alara sat beside him, silent, focused on scanning data from the collector's crystal. Inside the nebula, the signal from the Vault of Origin pulsed faintly, whatever was hidden. There, it was protected, shielded not just by location, but by fear. No one comes here, Alara whispered. Not even smugglers. Why? Jack asked. Because ships vanish, she said. Some say the sword's creators sealed something too dangerous to let out. They prepared to enter when a sudden beeping filled the cabin, a message, encrypted and old. Buried deep in the collector's data, Jack played it. And a ghostly voice echoed through the room. If you've reached this point, then the blade has chosen again. You are the Echo Blood. And what waits inside the vault will rewrite everything. Jack looked at Alara. What's Echo Blood? She hesitated, eyes full of worry. It means you're a direct descendant of the first sword bearers, she said. You don't just share their blood. You carry their memories. As they flew deeper into the nebula, the stars vanished entirely. Only faint flashes of violet lightning lit their path. Jack dreamed that night. But it wasn't just a dream. He stood in ancient halls again, wearing armor that glowed with breath-like light. He saw alien kings kneeling, great beasts falling, and Alara standing beside him in battle. He woke in a cold sweat, but Alara wasn't in the room. She was gone. Alarm suddenly rang through the ship. Jack rushed to the bridge and saw something that stopped his breath. Alara had sent a distress beacon. She stood on a nearby asteroid, surrounded by Council warships. He activated the comm. Her voice trembling but calm. I'm sorry, Jack, she said. I didn't want to. But they have my brother. Council High Guard Vital appeared beside her on screen, smirking. Well, human. This ends here. Jack stared at Alara, heart pounding. You used me? Tears formed in her eyes. No. I believed in you. I still do, but they'll kill him unless I give them your coordinates. The ship shook violently, missiles incoming. Jack dove into the cockpit and swerved into the nebula. Engines screaming. Outside, clouds of magnetic gas tore at the hull. One more hit, and he'd vanish just like the others. Suddenly, the sword on his back vibrated, glowing through its case. A strange voice echoed in his mind, not words, but direction. He followed the pull blindly, cutting through lightning storms and gravity fields. Behind him, 2 Council ships pursued. But one was torn apart by the nebula's rage. Finally, Jack reached a clearing in the storm, a glowing ring of floating rocks. In the center was a massive metal structure shaped like a star, the Vault of Origin. Jack landed hard, sparks flying. Across the ship deck, he stepped out, sword humming stronger than ever. No guards, no doors, just a single pillar with a slot in the center shaped like his blade. He pulled it free, walked forward, and slid it in. The vault shook, ancient systems roaring to life. A glowing path opened, leading underground inside. The halls were lined with statues, all human, men, women, children, in armor, robes, and strange gear. Each one held the same sword he now carried. At the end of the hall stood a throne, empty, but behind it, a wall of starlight showed the galaxy as it once was. A voice spoke, not from around him, but from within him. You have returned, it said, but not alone. He turned and saw Alara at the entrance. She had followed in a Council shuttle alone. Jack stepped forward slowly. Why did you come? She dropped her weapon, her voice broken. They betrayed me too. My brother is gone. Jack watched her silently. The sword pulsed again, not in anger, but in acceptance. He stepped aside and offered her his hand. Then help me finish what they tried to bury. Together, they stepped toward the throne. The vault sealed behind them. And above, the nebula shifted, as if the stars themselves were waking. What the Council feared was no longer a myth. The Echo Blood had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Vault of Origin had no windows, but Jack could feel the stars shift above him. He stood with Alara in a room so ancient. Even the walls breathed slowly like a living thing. A warm light poured from the sword embedded in the throne's core, its pulse matching Jack's own heart. Alara walked ahead, her fingers brushing the carvings on the walls. She was silent, but Jack could tell her guilt still lingered. She had betrayed him, but she had also come back. Sometimes that meant more. What is this place? Jack asked. Voice low, she answered without looking at him. A record, she said, of the ones who held the galaxy together, until the Council erased them. Jack stepped toward the center of the chamber, where a second sword, an unfinished twin, hovered in stasis. His sword began to glow brighter in its sheath, as if calling to it. I think they were meant to be used together, Jack whispered. Alara nodded. One for unity. One for judgment. Suddenly, a distant rumble echoed through the vault. A booming voice came through the communication stone Alara still carried. It was Highguard Vital. We gave you a chance. Human, he growled. Now we burn this planet and everything inside it. Outside, in the black storm of the nebula, the Council had sent their strongest war fleet. Dozens of ships formed a ring around the vault's hidden moon. Each was armed with enough firepower to destroy continents. Jack clenched his fists. They're scared, he said. Not of me, but of what I might awaken. Alara turned, her eyes hard. Then awaken it, she said. Now. Jack unsheathed the Blade of Origins. Its light shot up the walls like a beacon, activating hidden circuits buried for thousands of years. The ground shook as a hidden door opened beneath the throne, revealing a staircase of pure energy. They descended into the core of the vault, a massive chamber with a golden pedestal at the center. Hovering above it was a crystal sphere spinning slowly, glowing with all the starlight of a galaxy. Jack stepped onto the pedestal and raised the blade. The sphere shattered into particles and surged into him. A blinding white light filled the room. Alara shielded her eyes, and then silence. When the light faded, Jack stood transformed. His armor had changed ancient, silver, glowing with blue lines across his chest and arms. But more than armor, his mind had changed too. He could hear frequencies from ships outside, feel the shape of the stars beyond the nebula. He was the vault now, back on the Council's flagship. Alarms blared. Something's happening on the surface, shouted a panicked officer. A glowing energy signature was building, rising faster than anything recorded. Jack lifted the blade and pointed it to the sky. I'm not here to conquer, he said. I'm here to remind the galaxy what we once were. The vault responded. Pillars of light shot from its roof, slicing through the nebula. A symbol long lost to time, an emblem of the first human-star alliance, appeared in the sky. It burned across the black clouds, seen by every ship nearby. The alien fleets began to panic. Some retreated. Others fired missiles streaked toward the moon. But just before they struck, the vault's shield activated. A massive bubble of light absorbed the blasts like ripples on water. Inside, Alara stood beside Jack as systems around them awoke. Thousands of ancient drones, guardians and machines began to stir in the walls. You've reactivated a sleeping army, she whispered. Jack didn't answer. He looked toward the sky, feeling millions of eyes watching, now citizens across planets who would hear this signal. The blade hummed with power, and Jack spoke to the entire galaxy. His voice traveled on every open frequency. This isn't a war cry, he said. This is a warning. You tried to erase us, but we remember. Ships began retreating. Entire fleets blinked out of existence, afraid to challenge the will of the sword. But one flagship stayed, the command ship of Vatal. Jack narrowed his eyes. Then I'll give him a message he'll never forget. He launched skyward, flying not with engines, but on waves of gravitational energy drawn from the vault. His blade sang, lighting the sky like a comet. When he reached the ship, he didn't strike it. He carved a symbol into the hull, a mark of humanity's return, and with that, he vanished back into the clouds. The message was clear. The ancient protectors had returned. And this time, they were human. The skies above the nebula had changed. For centuries, they were silent and dark. Now they blazed with symbols of forgotten power, symbols from humanity's ancient past. Alien fleets scattered across nearby systems. Some fled in panic, others hid, watching. But all of them whispered the same question. What has awakened in the silent nebula? Jack stood on the outer platform of the Vault of Origin, his armor glowing under the swirling storm clouds. The Blade of Origins pulsed in his hand. No longer just a weapon, it was part of him now. Alara joined him, her silver blue hair fluttering in the electric wind. She looked up, her voice quiet. They used to say the vault was a myth, Jack answered. So was the idea that humans were weak. Beneath the vault, thousands of drones now moved. Ancient guardians reactivating slowly, each one etched with the same mark carved into the sky. These weren't war machines, they were recorders, teachers, protectors. They had waited for a bearer of the sword. And now that he was here, they were ready to serve again. But peace would not come easily. Far away, in a war room of the Galactic Council, alien leaders argued. He's claiming a forbiddance relic. Shut it down. Destroy the vault. Too late. He controls it now. On a far-off planet, a lone human child watched the sky glow with strange lights. Her alien foster parents pulled her inside, afraid, but she whispered through the window. They came back. Back at the vault, Jack was connected to more than just the planet. He could feel networks, satellites, languages he had never learned. Information surged through him like a tide. He saw the true map of the galaxy, hidden trade routes, dead colonies, covered-up wars, lies built by the Council. And deep in the center of it all was a sealed archive. One the Council thought they had erased forever. Jack reached out with the sword's mind link and unlocked it. A hologram exploded above the vault. Thousands of alien cities watched it from across the stars. It showed the truth humans once walked the stars as peacemakers, not conquerors, but guides. They had built vaults to protect knowledge, not rule through fear. Alara turned to Jack, her eyes wide. You just told the truth to half the galaxy. He looked back at her, calm and steady. They deserve it. The Council struck back within hours. A fleet of elite destroyers arrived at the nebula's edge. Cloaked ships slipped through the gas, carrying assassins, cyberbreakers, and gene-modified killers. They had one goal: kill the human before he inspired a revolution. But Jack was ready. As one assassin closed in, hiding behind invisibility cloaks, Jack turned, his sword slicing the air. The cloak shattered like glass. The assassin froze. How did you see me? Jack didn't answer. He didn't need to. Every instinct, every sense, every reaction was enhanced. The sword didn't just give him strength. It gave him memory, instinct, and the wisdom of those who came before him. Jack took no lives that day, but he left warnings, disarmed enemies, broken weapons, and a message scratched into every hull. I am not your enemy unless you make me one. Alara watched from the command tower of the vault. He's changing, she whispered. Not in a bad way, but in a destined way. She could feel it. The vault wasn't just waking up. It was choosing him, piece by piece, not to lead an army, but to show the galaxy something better, later. Jack stood before a new council, not of corrupt rulers, but of awakened leaders from scattered colonies. Alien scientists, traders, warriors, even human exiles who had lived in hiding, they asked. One question: what happens now? Jack looked at them all. I don't want to rule, he said. I want to remind every world what we used to be. The vaults must open, he said. The hidden truths must be free, and if the Council tries to stop us. He raised the sword, its edge humming with pure light. Then I'll be the sword they were never brave enough to lift. Jack stood beneath a starless sky. The vault of origin rose behind him like a glowing monument. For weeks, light had streamed from it, messages, memories, signals reaching corners of the galaxy no one had touched in generations. A storm was coming. Not just of warships and fleets, but of truth. The Council had sent one last message: return the sword, or be destroyed. But Jack wasn't afraid anymore. He knew the sword hadn't chosen him to fight. It had chosen him to wake the sleeping heart of the galaxy. Inside the vault, Alara stood at a control station, watching thousands of alien messages pour in. Some were threats, others were warnings, but many were calls for help. Outcasts, refugees, forgotten species, all asking the same thing. Is it true? Can we rise again? Jack didn't answer with words. He answered by opening more vaults. Across the galaxy, ancient beacons came online. On dead moons, buried planets, underwater cities, vaults long hidden began to glow. Each one held not weapons, but knowledge. Each one told the same story in a different voice. Humans had once united the stars, not with fear, but with vision, and now that memory was rising again, the council panicked. They deployed fleets to destroy the vaults. But something had changed on the planet Shiranine. A battalion of alien soldiers refused their orders. "We've seen the truth," their commander said. "We fight no more." On the trading moon of Draxus, smugglers began guarding a local vault. Like it was sacred, in deep space. Pirate clans swore loyalty to the cause, not to Jack himself, but to the symbol he carried. Back at the original vault, Jack sat in silence. He could feel the sword humming at his side, not just as a weapon, but like a living spirit. It had changed him, yes, but more than that. He had changed it. Elara approached quietly. "You know they're coming," she said. "One last armada. They want to make an example out of you." Jack nodded. "They can try." The next day, the sky above the vault darkened as the Grand Armada of the Council arrived. 100 capital ships formed a ring around the planet, their weapons locked, their engines humming with power. But Jack didn't raise shields. He stood alone at the highest platform of the vault, the sword in hand. No army, no fleet, just a man who carried a forgotten light. The Council's commander hailed him. "You've defied order, spread ancient lies and broken our peace," Jack answered calmly. "You didn't keep peace, you erased history." "We'll fire in 10 seconds, the commander said. Jack looked up at the storm of ships and said only one word: "Do it." And they did. Missiles rained down like fire, lasers, rail rounds, plasma cannons, all screaming through the sky toward the vault. But the sword lifted itself, not just into Jack's hand, but into the air. It spun like a star, and a pulse of energy erupted, not violent, not loud, just pure, blinding white light, and then nothing. Silence. Above the planet, the entire armada hung still, not destroyed, frozen, their systems offline, their weapons disarmed. Every screen on every ship now displayed a single message: "This is not your galaxy to control. Let it choose its own path." The Council's command ship slowly powered down, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the Council fell silent. They didn't fight back, because they finally understood. This wasn't a war. This was a reawakening. Later that week, Jack stepped down from the vault tower. He removed the armor, sheathed the sword, and walked among the people like an ordinary man. Elara met him at the base. "It's over?" she asked. "No," Jack said softly. "It's just beginning." The galaxy didn't need rulers. It needed memory. It needed people brave enough to lift the truth, even when it was buried deep in silence. And now, everywhere Jack went, others began doing the same, lifting, not swords, but hope. And slowly the stars began to shine again.